So the Los Angeles Dodgers are, I mean, for a while it looked like they were going to win 90 games before we got to September, and they still could. Mm-hmm. They still could, but is suffice it to say, in fact, I think you should go to Bet Online and bet on the Dodgers winning the NL West. I think that's a good bet. What you would get, exactly what you put back. You win nothing. You say, I bet $1. Okay, they won. Here's your $1 back. You know, it's like
you'll probably lose money betting on that.
Yeah, you probably will. I don't know how betting works. But LA, LA is interesting because Walker Buehler's out for the year now. Craig Kimbrell, their closer, their nominal closer, has been, let's be fair and call him shaky. Okay. Cody Bellinger, their one-time MVP, is batting he has a sub 670 OPS. Max Muncy, if you look at his stats and go, wait a minute, I thought pitchers weren't batting anymore. Oh, that's Max Muncy. Oh, that's interesting. Chris Taylor is not having a particularly terrific season. And yet they're a cinch to win 100 games. An absolute cinch. Partly because their lineup has Freeman, who is everything they would have wanted him to be. Trey Turner, who's everything they would have wanted him to be. Mookie Betts, who is not having an MVP season, but is certainly super productive right now. Will Smith, no, not that Will Smith, no, the other Will Smith has given them the pop. And look, I'm not going to be a slave to win-loss records because I think they can be deceiving. That being said, the fact that Tyler Anderson and Tony Gonsolin's combined win-loss record is 29-3 shows that they're at least pitching well enough to win the big games. Along with Julio Urias, those are your top three starters. All are, eating a ton of innings. All have ERAs sub 2.7. And guess what? Someone else with an ERA sub 2.7 is going to be coming off the disabled list. And his name is Mr. Clayton Kershaw, arguably the greatest Los Angeles Dodger of all time. If you're into WAR and sabermetrics, I still think any combination of Drysdale and Koufax takes that title. But the fact that Kershaw's lowest point of his place in Los Angeles Dodgerdom is the bronze medal at this point. It's good to have someone like that back. And lest we forget, Kershaw was having a fine season before he got injured. He struck out 88 batters in 85 and a third innings, only walked 15. His ERA was 2.64. He was having a good, solid season. Maybe not his typical Cy Young season, but he's done very well. By the way, another former Cy Young Award winner, David Price, has found a really nice niche on the team as a super reliever, and good for him. Former Red Sox World Series champion, Mr. Cute and Cuddly. But the addition of Clayton Kershaw as it's essentially their number 4 starter for the postseason just kind of shows the intense depth that this Dodger team had. And while I've been singing the praises of St. Louis and of the New York Mets, it's tough to look away from this Dodger team.
Yeah, Kershaw, Mount Rushmore of Dodgers, if we're talking the regular season, because the postseason stuff, I don't know what Clayton Kershaw, but hey, that's a story for another day. Let's talk about the positive Kershaw, because like you said, maybe not a Cy Young season this year, but still 85% of prime Kershaw, still a stud, still an all-star pitcher. And if he's your number 4, I mean, look, Kershaw in any other rotation is still number 2, number 1 frontline starter for most rotations. If he's there with the D-backs, he's right there with Zach Allen neck and neck as the ace of that staff, right? But with the Dodgers, they're embarrassment of riches. He's their number 4 starter. You're going through their lineup. You're going through the struggling players, right? The Max Muncies of the world. You also went through the highlights of the players, guys like Mookie Betts and other players who are performing well. The Dodgers lineup. One guy you didn't mention is someone like Gavin Lux, who was one of the top prospects in baseball, and he's batting .297 with an 800+ OPS. Like, despite the Dodgers having guys like Muncy and Chris Taylor struggling, they still have have 6 dudes with 800 plus OPS, and they still got someone like Joey Gallo on their bench who's since coming over as like a 900 plus OPS. Like the embarrassment of riches on the Dodgers is crazy. You look at their rotation. You mentioned Tyler Anderson and Tony Gonsolin. Like people want Tony Gonsolin to be the Cy Young Award winner. I think that's a little bit crazy, but he's still been fantastic this season. They also got Dustin May back. Like you're gonna have Dustin May in that rotation potentially with Kershaw, with Urias, and Anderson, and the other pitcher I just mentioned who I already forgot his name. Like you're still gonna have 5 starters going into that rotation who could be, number 2, number 3s, number 1s on pretty much any rotation in baseball. And that's still without Walker Buehler, like you mentioned. You got David Price as your super reliever now. Craig Kimbrell, he does look like 2018 World Series Craig Kimbrell when he was super shaky during that playoff run. So if I had to say a weakness of that Dodgers team, it is that closing situation, because they have a bunch of relievers that they could put out there, but it's probably going to be a little bit of a revolving door from the closer situation from the Dodgers. I'm probably going by the closer by committee approach once I get to the postseason and just ride whatever hot hand or just play the matchup or whatever you want to do there, because I don't think I'm trusting Craig Kimbrell in a big postseason matchup. If you put Craig Kimbrell in those high leverage moments once we get to the postseason, I think that could be, that could be the acts of death for the Dodgers. That could be the thing that stops them. So if I'm the Dodgers, I'm not putting Craig Kimbrell in those situations. That's the only thing that gives me hesitancies about this team. But other than that, I mean, there's not really many weaknesses around this Dodgers squad right now.
Well, let me just say 2 quick things. They should just forget the idea of the closer. Just use whatever reliever is the best reliever for that particular situation. Don't worry about the save. Why do you worry about the save in the postseason? No one cares. Doesn't matter who gets the save. And eventually, when Alex Cora won the World Series with the Red Sox in 2018 and Kimbrell was shaky for that 9th inning of the clincher, he said, bring in Chris Sale.
Yeah.
He's rested. He's not going to get another start. I don't want him to have another start. He was supposed to start the next day. No, come on in, Chris. Get the final outs. I'm sure Craig Kimbrell would love to have been the one to close the game, but tough. Just get at this point when you have the likes of like maybe a Dustin May's not going to get a start. Andrew Heaney's not going to get a start. There's a bunch of people who like Chris Martin's had, a couple of maybe someone who they don't have a big scouting report on. Just mix and match, get those wins. Or, God forbid, you lean on the starting pitchers to go very deep in the games. I want to just say this quickly because I am a Clayton Kershaw supporter. Mm-hmm. I know he has lost a bunch of very big games over the years. I'm not going to pretend that he hasn't. He has had 7 games in the postseason where he's pitched 7 or more innings with 1 or fewer runs allowed. Mm. And in all of those games, the high in the hit total was 3. That was the peak. And so he's had 7 games over the years in the postseason where he has come through. And one of those games, no one seems to remember, was in the World Series. In fact, if the Dodgers had won that World Series, there would have been an argument that Kershaw was the MVP. He came out of the bullpen and was dominant in Game 7, pitching a bunch of shutout innings out in relief. The one game he lost was the one game where there was a trash can being banged, which is, of course, when you take a look at that Astros team, sorry, folks at Locked On Astros, the fact that they clobbered Chris Sale, they clobbered David Price, they clobbered CC Sabathia, they clobbered Clayton Kershaw, all these people who were dominant pitchers who suddenly looked like they were throwing batting practice. Clayton Kershaw dominated the Astros in Los Angeles and then suddenly threw batting practice in Houston and then went back to dominating them in Los Angeles. And we found out that they were doing something a little shaky. So it's cruel because that would have been his John Elway moment. That would have been his moment of like, you can't, there's nothing more you can say against me. And quite frankly, there was an argument for him to be the MVP of the World Series that they finally won, the COVID year. He pitched very, very well in that World Series, winning both of his starts. I think everyone in Dodgerdom would love to win a World Series that wasn't COVID related or shut down. I think they would love to be able to have you won a World Series with that weird year. they would love to be able to check off and say, yeah, we also won this year. It's to sort of, to sort of take any caveat off of the championship run that they've had.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to get into a Kershaw back and forth with you. That's probably not the point of today.
Oh no, that's not. And look at, as I said, there are several games that in the postseason where he came up incredibly small, and the Astros weren't banging the trash can for every single one of them. Came up incredibly small the year he won the MVP against St. Louis in 2014. He came up small there was when he came out of the bullpen and let up those two massive home runs in the potential clincher game against Washington in 2019. I'm not letting him off the hook for his postseason failures. I'm just saying that he has also had times where he has come up, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm cutting off the emails I'm going to get at the pass, because he has had 7 games where if you look at those lines, that's what you expect from an ace pitcher: 7 or more innings, 1 or fewer runs, 3 or fewer hits. You would take that from anybody at any era. So 7 times he came through like that. So I can hear the Dodger fans who follow me starting to go tippy type. So I'm just putting this out. I'm cutting off the tweet at the pass.
Well, you know what, Dodgers fans, you could tweet at me because he's made 30 postseason starts. If he only got 7 good starts under his belt, well, what kind of winning percentage is that? That's terrible. Dodgers fans, Clayton Kershaw, Peyton Manning, greatest regular season performers in their respective sports. But when it comes to the postseason, they're terrible. And that's my hot take.
Well, I think here's what I think is where you have to be able to. I mean, like Kershaw's lifetime ERA in his 15 years, and he's won 192 games. He's pitched more than 2,500 innings to an ERA of 2.49, which is just terrific.
Insane.
And that same pitcher pitches to an ERA of 4.19 in the postseason. So his ERA is more than a run and a half higher in October. And of course, the biggest crime of humanity against him was 2014, where he won the Cy Young, he won the MVP, and he not only lost his 2 games to St. Louis in the division series, but his ERA was over 7. And this was coming after an NLCS against St. Louis, where he went 0-2 with an ERA over 6. I mean, he has had grotesque postseason series over the years. So I'm not pretending that he hasn't. I'm just trying to,
Yeah, and the reason because the reason I get on because the reason I get on him is because of that contrast. Because if you just compare that to players like of the similar ilk in his generation, like Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, 2 guys we were considered on the same level, right? Verlander career regular season ERA is like a 3.26, postseason 3.4. Max Scherzer career regular season ERA 3.12, postseason ERA 3.2. So basically, Verlander and Max Scherzer, they're the same guy, regular season, postseason. But for someone like Clayton Kershaw, it's literally like 2 different pitchers you get from the regular season to the postseason. That's why I give him so much, just angst and crap for it, because it's like, how did this guy convert into a pumpkin once we get to the postseason? Like, what's going on with him? Is it like a mental thing? He feels that pressure. Like, I don't know what it is with Clayton Kershaw, why his game seems to falter once we get to the biggest moments.
Well, and you have to remember about that 2014 season is you had the greatest contrast that during the regular season, there's no getting around the fact that Kershaw was the best pitcher in baseball. He just was. His stats were through the roof. The Dodgers finished in first place. He won the MVP. But there was such a perfect contrast when I told you he lost his 2 games against St. Louis in the postseason. And you contrast that with his division rival, Madison Bumgarner, that same year, who threw complete game shutouts in the wild card game and the World Series, was the MVP of the National League Championship Series against the same Cardinals, and had one of the most mind-boggling World Series performances ever, where he threw a complete game shutout, won another game, and came out of the bullpen to get the 5-inning save to clinch the World Series. I mean, I will put that October against any in baseball history, because he had to do it against 4 different opponents. And so that you have that contrast of and Bumgarner had a fine season, but he wasn't a Cy Young winner. So it became and that was the year where it became so clear that Kershaw had the great regular season, but wet the bed. And the team that he wet the bed against, Bumgarner dominated in the NLCS and just cemented his own reputation as one of the great postseason pitchers of our time.
No, that's interesting you bring that up, Sully, because I didn't realize this. Now looking back at it, Kershaw won the Cy Young Award in 2013 and then won Cy Young and MVP in 2014. So like you said, he's cemented as the best pitcher in baseball, arguably the best player in baseball at that time. But both in the 2013 and 2014 postseason, he's taken out by the St. Louis Cardinals, who absolutely clobber Clayton Kershaw. Right. And like you said, Madison Bumgarner goes in there and ends the Cardinals. So I wonder if the Cardinals doing that kind of work against Kershaw when he's having those incredible all-time regular seasons, if that just, invites ghosts into his head and just kind of messes him mentally for the rest of his postseason career, where he's like, you know what, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was because I'm an MVP in the regular season and then I face the St. Louis Cardinals team. They just absolutely destroy me in the postseason.
I mean, he won 3 Cy Youngs in 4 years, and you could have made the case the year he didn't win. That was the year that R.A. Dickey won with the Mets. Kershaw arguably was better, but R.A. Dickey was the better feel-good story. And you know what? I'm not going to cry that he didn't win 4 Cy Youngs in a row. Someone who did win 4 Cy Youngs in a row was Greg Maddox. And people forget that Greg Maddox's postseason career was somewhat checkered for a while. He did horribly against the Giants. He did horribly against the Phillies. And he was not the dominant. I mean, this was a guy, he pitched in the steroid era while he was throwing to a 1 ERA in the regular season, his postseason ERA was several runs higher. Again, Maddox and Kershaw, first ballot Hall of Famers, no question about it. But both of them in the postseason, Smoltz was the better postseason performer. Randy Johnson had his postseason ghosts as well. He had a bunch of years where he got pasted in the division series. And he made up for it with the great World Series he had against the Yankees. But Schilling was the one who had the reputation of being the great postseason pitcher of the two of them. And it certainly that difference between the two certainly was aided by the fact that Johnson got clobbered when he was with the Yankees, and Schilling continued to pitch well while pitching with the Red Sox.
Yeah, I'm also looking at that 2014 postseason run. Like you said, Cardinals take out Kershaw, and then Madison Bumgarner wins the championship series MVP against the Cardinals, the way he pitches great. And then he goes on to win the World Series MVP as well. So regular season MVP was Kershaw. And then you see Madison Bumgarner come in and win championship series MVP, World Series MVP, and basically retakes over the narrative as being one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then we have this negative narrative against Clayton Kershaw at that time as well. So very interesting stuff that we just delved into, honestly. I didn't realize all that after looking back at it.
And then his next postseason start was a complete game shutout against the Mets in the wild card game. He just was he was just on such an unbelievable roll. Hey, I want two closers in baseball, two closers who have World Series rings. Neither one were the pitchers who clinched the World Series. Each did something very stupid the other day. One of them was Aroldis Chapman. I've made my feelings known about Aroldis Chapman. He was the closer for the Cubs, but Rajai Davis made sure he was not the one to clinch the World Series with the home run I still can't believe happened. And he was he did something very stupid. He is on the injured list just when the Yankees need bullpen depth, and Chapman was starting to pitch better. You want to tell me why he's on the injured list?
I saw in our group chat he was on the injured list, but I don't know why, Sully. Why do you make it there?
I think he was getting a tattoo.
Oh, what do you mean?
Yes, somehow he got one, I don't know, that missed. I don't know. I'm too hairy to get tattoos. I never got a tattoo myself. But here's the deal, folks. If you're making millions of dollars and trying to get your team back to the World Series, here's a tip from your pal Sully. Save the tattoos for November, okay? So apparently he's on there's an infection or something like that. I don't know. Maybe he went to A-Rod's cousin. I don't know who did that, who was giving him a tattoo. But that's got to be, especially for the Yankees, who have already lost King, have Nestor Cortez injured, are finally coming out of their funk. They went on that 5-game winning streak after their big funk, and look like, okay, they're getting their mojo back. And they suddenly have a vacuum in the closer role, and Chapman was starting to pitch better. And then boom, he said, now I'm going to get an anchor on my arm or whatever he was decided to do. And he's on the injured list. So that's pretty stupid. But I'll say there's something even stupider. And I've been screaming this for years. There is no excuse to end a game with a bases loaded walk. Ever. And we saw it last night in a wild, weird game where Nolan Arenado came back from the injured list, from the paternity list. He became a new dad and hit a home run, 4 hits. But the Cardinals were losing to Atlanta. Kenley Jansen, former LA Dodger, who was also a bit shaky in the postseason, if you look at his resume, came in and could not find the strike zone, including hitting Arenado and walking some batters. And there was kind of a weird sort of infield chopper. Put the ball in play, people. Things happen when balls are put in play, that scored the tying run. And then he walked in the final run. Walked it in. I can understand in Little League. I can understand in the minor leagues. I can understand in college. I cannot understand in the major leagues, especially with Kenley Jansen, who's an all-star, who's a talented pitcher. If you got 3 balls and a pitch is out of the strike zone, the game is over. Lob it down the middle of the plate. The worst thing that happens is he hits a walk-off grand slam, and then you tip your hat to him. He could swing early and pop it up or ground out. He could hit a line drive to someone. He could swing and miss. He could take it, but throw it down the middle of the plate. It will, because when he threw to end the game was practically a wild pitch. It was in the dirt. It will never cease to amaze me that a game can end with a walk-off walk. That makes no sense to me. Thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. And if I'm Kenley Jansen, literally underhand, pop up, throw it to them. Because guess what? If they see that little eephus pitch coming, they're going to try to muscle that thing up so hard and try to crush the ball. And guess what? You have 9 defenders behind you. You might just have someone be in the perfect spot. It might be an atom ball. So I totally agree with this philosophy. It's one of the main things that irritates me. It's like a big pet peeve of mine when I'm watching a baseball game, because if there's there's no reason to walk the guy in that situation, the game is going to end automatically. So at that point, it's might as well just let the guy try and hit and just hope your defense is in the right place to catch the ball, because there's really no other option that you got as a pitcher. Because if I'm just going to walk the dude, what's the point of that? My team is already going to lose at that point.
Yeah. Guy leads the league in saves. He's a 3-time All-Star.
And it wasn't even and it wasn't the only walk-off walk we saw on the night, which is crazy. We had 2 games in one day with the walk-off walk.
Yeah, lob it down the middle of the plate. Especially, you're trying to establish that you're a legit playoff team, and maybe even have images of catching the Mets dancing in your head. You have a chance to beat the Cardinals, one of the best teams in baseball. Lob it. Well, do you want? I'm going to lob another one down the middle of the plate and say, Miller Thomas, where can people follow you?
You know what? You can follow me on Twitter @CreatorThomas24 for my personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, the show account, Twitter, Instagram. Follow me on YouTube, Locked On Diamondbacks on there. And of course, we're on all your podcasting platforms.
And remember, Miller Thomas, let's review. He's anti-Mike Trout.
Yep.
He's anti-Willie Mays. He's anti-Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah.
You can follow me at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Giving you a salad bar of topics and talking about people from Willie Mays to Kenley Jansen and everyone in between. This has been the Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks crossover for the 29th day of August, 2022. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. That's Miller Thomas. Call him Creator Thomas 24, at least on Twitter. Hey, let's fist bump.
Yep, we like playoffs.